Natasha is our talent acquisition manager in this whole vicinity for enterprise. So she has been single-handedly pushing our students through for all these jobs that do start at 49 to 50 grand right out of college and let you learn how to actually manage a franchise and manage a business. It's way more than just renting cars, as you'll hear. So thank you.
So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Natasha Johnson, and I am a regional talent acquisition manager for Enterprise. I started working for Enterprise literally right out of college. I started in our entry-level management training program, and I worked my way up to an assistant manager. I then became a branch manager. I managed several locations as a branch manager before I transitioned into our talent acquisition team back in 2014. In 2017, I was promoted to a regional talent acquisition manager. And so I really do love and enjoy what I do. I will tell you all that coming out of college and telling my parents that I'm going to go work for a car rental company wasn't the greatest conversation to have. But I had to educate my parents about all of the endless opportunities at Enterprise, the promote from within structure. That all was very, very, it was very enticing to me. It was important because I wanted to work for a company where I wouldn't feel stagnant and stay in the same position my entire career. So that's a little bit about me. Up on the screen, you'll see my LinkedIn. Feel free if you want to link in with me. Even after this class, if you have questions about interviewing, about employment opportunities, you can link in and we can connect that way. I'm also sending around an iPad. I'm asking that everyone sign into the iPad. I will connect with you all afterwards, so you'll have my email address just in case you have some other questions as well. So as you can see, I've had a very long-standing career with Enterprise, but more importantly, I have a great understanding of the recruitment process, and that's where I feel I might be an asset to you all. So in talking about today's topics, we're going to talk a little bit about how to manage yourself during the interview process and while at work, managing your brand, managing profit loss. I know that we might have some entrepreneurs in the room. So understanding profit and loss is really important. And then throughout the presentation, I'm going to sprinkle a little bit of information about Enterprise. So you're just a few months from graduation and you need to find a job. You have an interview on Monday. How will you prepare? How many of you have jobs graduating yet? How many of you are seniors, I should say? Okay, no jobs lined up just yet? Have you started interviewing? Okay.
How many of you need a job and don't have one yet? A little higher.
Okay. All right. Well, we both have a vested interest in each other then. So we'll start there. So when you are getting prepared for that job interview that you're going to have, some things you need to think about is your professional image. So how do you want to appear when you go for your interview? You want to know about the company. And that one is really huge. I can't tell you how many people miss the mark here, but you need to do some research on the company. You have to know a little bit about what you're looking for. And then I'm going to share with you some do's and don'ts. So we'll start with your professional image.
Natasha, is it already taking a picture of the screen?
Oh, go ahead.
Okay, you guys
And I can email the presentation if you want to have it. That way you'll have it right at your fingertips. I can do that as well. So that's not a problem. But as far as your professional image, a neat and organized appearance can really go a long way when you're really trying to make a really great first impression. And making sure your clothes are cleaned and pressed, that's only half the battle. But you want to double check your ties for any spots on it, make sure there's no runs in your holes. And it's just the little things that from an appearance perspective will really make a huge difference. When it comes to your hair, I know that we want to go out sometimes and we want to make a statement. The interview is really not the place to do that. I think it's always really nice to go conservative with a nice conservative look when you are going in for an interview. And you want to wear a suit. And even if it's not really necessary to do so, It makes a professional statement, even if the person that's interviewing you is dressed casually. And I know that a suit can be really expensive, but I think it's really a great investment into your career. And you can use it at any interview. No one's gonna see that you wore that suit to another interview a week ago. You can change up the shirts. If you wanna get a pantsuit, you can get a skirt to match it, and you can just mix and match, but it's definitely worth the investment. So if you don't have a suit and you are going out to start interviewing, I would strongly suggest that you make the investment. So knowing the company, you have to do a little bit of research. And the more that you research, the easier it will be when you get into the interview. Researching the company will not only build your confidence, but it also will build your enthusiasm for the position. Has any of you researched a job and then you thought it was just something really simple, and then as you did more research, you found that it was something that you were really interested in doing, and it made you want the job even more? Well, that's where it pays off. Researching the history and the industry can help you get a better understanding of what the employer might be looking for as well. So I'm gonna say utilize your resources. And I think a lot of people miss the mark here. They don't use their resources. How many of you have been to the Career Development Center here? By show of hands. Okay, so there's some opportunity there. If you have not been there, I would say consider it a missed opportunity for yourself. Your Career Development Center, they have long-standing relationships with many different employers, and oftentimes they are your key and your ticket in. And Julia, I've seen you talk to employers, I've seen you advocate for your students. Well, Julia can't do it all by herself, and she can't really advocate for you if she doesn't really know you. So I want to encourage you all to go and visit your Career Development Center. Sit down, they can help you with interviews there and everything, just because you want to make sure that you're prepared for that interview. That's one of your resources. You can also read up on newspaper articles. How many of you have read about a company that you're interviewing for in the newspaper? Or what if they had something going on in the company that you kind of want to be privy to, right? Because it can really determine the fate of the company, and you might be going to go work for them. So you want to read up on any newspaper articles, and if the company doesn't have an internet website, I would run quickly. You should be able to find whatever you need on a company's website. And last but not least, you should utilize your network. A lot of your friends, I'm sure, probably already graduated and have already entered the work world. Even if they're not your friends and you've seen them in class, maybe you can utilize LinkedIn to connect with them, maybe ask them some questions about the positions. Maybe you even go look at the company that most interests you and find out if there's anyone in your circle that might already be working there. So you have all of these things that are kind of right at your fingertips. When you're also thinking about a company, you should also consider the work environment. So I'll tell you again and again, I never intended to come and work for Enterprise. I had no idea that this was where my career would be 15 years later. But what I did consider is that Enterprise has a tremendous amount of growth opportunities. I did not want to be stagnant. And I think at the time, our starting salary, and I might date myself a little bit, might be around the 30,000 mark. We've come a long way since. And I was just kind of like, well, there's a lot of growth opportunities. I can make 6 figures in a few years if I work really hard. And I did. I worked really, really hard. But I want to let you know that you should be looking for these things. And it's not just about how much the company can offer you from a dollar amount. Hi.
Everything's good. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. You should also know about their philosophies when it comes to promotions. Again, a lot of this you can ask when you are in the actual interview. You want to know what their marketing strategies are. You want to be with a company that's essentially going to grow. Because if the company grows, then what does that mean for you all? Opportunities. And you want to be with a company that is continuously growing year over year, that gives you some job security, but it also creates some opportunities for you as well. When it comes to the job description, I know that we go online and we're clicking away. We're applying to every single job, and you're probably doing that now. And that's great. But one of the things that I want to encourage you to do is for the jobs that you're really interested in and a job that you might have a good opportunity at getting an interview for, is print the job description. Because if someone calls you today or tomorrow and they're like, I want to do an interview with you, and you're like, man, I've applied to 1,000 jobs. I don't even know what job this is that they're calling me about, right? And sometimes we as recruiters, we will pull the jobs down, or they might not even be on our website. We might just find your resume online, and we know that we're going to open this opportunity, and we contact you before we even open it up. So make sure you print the job descriptions. Even though you're applying away, have some idea as to what types of jobs that you are interviewing for. I can't even tell you how many times I am interviewing someone over the phone, and the first question that I ask is, well, what do you know about enterprise? And what attracted you to this position? So what do you think that conversation is like? It goes downhill from there, because oftentimes, and I'll say this, it happens a lot, I would say that about 65 to 70% of the people that I interview has done absolutely no research. So for a recruiter, it's kind of like a turn off initially. And listen, not every recruiter is like myself. I do typically give you the benefit of the doubt, and then I'll warn you to never do that again, but not every recruiter is going to do that for you. So something that you want to keep in mind is make sure that you take down the job description and know what jobs that you're applying. So what does it mean to really research a company? It means to know the mission statement of the company. It's to know the history of the firm. You want to know who the CEO is. I mean, we're not asking you to do a lot. We're not asking you to read a book about the company and then recite it during the interview. But there are some basic things that you should know during the interview. You should also know if it's a public company or privately owned, what the stock price is, what are the gross revenues of the company. And so I'm going to use Enterprise as an example. This right here is actually our career website. And at the top, well, my right, but your left-hand side of the corner, you'll see our brands. So Enterprise Holdings, that's Enterprise, that's National, and that's Alamo. You'll see over here, there's an About Us. Good chance you'll find some information about our history there. Then there tells you a little bit about Connect with Us. You have the opportunity to connect with our local recruiters. I can't say that all companies do that, but if you go on that website and you put in New York City, you're probably going to see a big picture of me there, because we try to make our recruiters visible to everyone so you can connect with us. You see military there. Well, you've already heard a little bit from your professor. If you see military on the front of a career page, it might mean that the company is a military-friendly company. And not all companies are, so that gives you some insight on the company as well. There's a blog there. And then this number right here. I know that if I were looking for a job, that would be really attractive to me. So since January 1st of 2019, we've had over 17,000 promotions across the company. That's huge. I don't know how many companies can actually say that. And we put it on our website specifically for those individuals who are looking for an opportunity to grow with a company. And so that's huge. And it's one of the things that really attracted me to the company. But to get back to my original point, if we go back to the screen here, it says, know the mission statement of the company, know the history, know the CEO, know whether it's public or privately owned, know the stock, know the revenue. So if I were going to our career site and I was researching Enterprise, I would know that the mission statement sounds a little bit like,
our mission is to be the best transportation service provider in the world, to exceed our customers' expectations for service, quality, and value, to provide our employees with a great place to work, and to serve our communities as a committed corporate citizen.
So anyone, what does that all mean? So we talked about our customers. Our customers are important to us. Our employees are important to us. And we want to make sure that we're a pillar in the community, right? That's what you got from that, right? I would also know that the history of the company sounds a little bit like,
Our history comes from humble beginnings. World War II Navy veteran Jack Taylor started the company in 1957. Lessons he learned from the Navy, including values of integrity, hard work, team spirit, and simply doing the right thing, helped shape his personality and made their mark on the company's ground. Decorated fighter pilot, Jack returned from his service, big dreams and values that would become the foundation of his company. He even named the company after the ship in which he served, the USS Enterprise. Today, Taylor family still owns Enterprise and is committed to maintaining these values and reflecting in those great areas.
thank you. Thank you for reading that. And who's our CEO?
Enterprise Holdings Incorporated, Christy Taylor, the company's president and chief operating officer, has been promoted to chief executive officer, CEO, effective January 1st. Taylor becomes only the fourth CEO of the company's more than 60-year history and the third generation of Taylor family CEO leadership, preceded as CEO by her father, Andy Taylor, and grandfather, Jack Taylor. The position has been held since 2013 by Pam Nicholson, who retired at the end of the year.
Yes. So for my ladies out there, I'm sorry, gents, but our CEO is a female. And so Chrissy was our COO. She was promoted to our CEO, but talk about women's leadership. And I'll have you know that both Chrissy and Pam Nicholson, who just recently retired, also started off in the entry-level management training role. So even though the company was owned by Jack Taylor, they had to go through the same management training program that I went through, essentially. So, and in terms of our revenue, right, because that's important, right? You want to work for a company that's making money. That's why you want to be in business.
Enterprise is a privately owned company with over 25 billion in.
Yes, so that's a little bit about Enterprise. So to get back to my original point, the point is it took me 10 minutes to go on our company's website and find all of that information. So there's no reason why you can't be prepared for an interview just by looking at the website. There's so much to tell there. How many of you have actually used Glassdoor? How many of you find it helpful? You can actually do research on Glassdoor. So if you go to Glassdoor, you can type in the company, you can see what the CEO approval is, you can see what people are saying about the company. You can also get some insight as to what the interview process consists of. What are some questions you might be asked? And so if you haven't used Glassdoor, I would definitely recommend that you utilize it. It's a great way to research a company. But the whole point is take the time and do the research, right? So you have to know a little bit about yourself. And the reason why I kind of stress this a bit is because as much as you should know the company, you have to know whether or not you are going to fit in to this company. And you want to take a look about your experience. You want to kind of look at the activities that you're part of. Any of you on an executive board or fraternity or sorority, any?
Me. This is,
What's that?
I am.
Okay. Fraternity?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Those things, it teaches you a lot. And so although you may not necessarily be working in the real world, being a part of an organization, and especially if you're a part of an executive board, you can talk about how you've been committed to that organization, how you've helped that organization grow, whether or not they have like a small student body, and how with your marketing efforts, it now has a student body of over 100 students. So you want to kind of take a look at those things because you want to see how your skill set will transfer. Oftentimes when you're applying for a job, a lot that's in the job description, you may say that, well, that's not me. I don't really have that type of experience. But you do. You don't realize it. So you have to kind of take a real look into your work activities. Even if you're working part-time, you might think that your small part-time job is really not worth mentioning in the interview. And you'll probably find that it's very different because You might find that you're working a lot on your own without your manager, and so there's certain leadership decisions that you might have to make on your own. That's an opportunity for you to kind of show how your skill set will transfer into this role. And that's why you need to know a little bit about yourself. You also need to know your strengths. What are you good at, right? The point of the interview is to go in there and sell yourself, and a lot of that is going to be you talking about how great you are. But you might get asked a question like, well, what is an area of opportunity for you? How would you answer that? Do you get scared to answer that question? Yeah? Why would someone hesitate to answer a question like that in an interview? I'm going to ask you. So, just so you know with me, if you don't volunteer, you'll be voluntold very nicely, and that's with a smiley face. But I will, pick on you guys a little bit, and it's all in good fun, so.
Your question was, if you don't, what was it?
Why would someone be scared to approach a question? What is an area of opportunity for you?
Because most people don't know their strengths and weaknesses, and they don't know what they should say in order to answer that question.
Right, because the reality is you're like, I'm here to sell myself. I don't want to talk to you about what I'm not doing, right? But I'm going to tell you, I've asked that question 1,000 times, and I can't tell you how many people tell me. Well, the biggest opportunity for me is that I'm a perfectionist. And I hate hearing that because it sounds very disingenuous. What we want to hear is we want you to be honest. Tell us something that you have been given feedback on that you're actually working on. And in fact, it shows us that you're able to take feedback and use it positively to, better yourself. But when you tell me something like, I'm a perfectionist, I'm like, you're not really a perfectionist, and that was a really bad example. But if you don't think about this before the interview, you're going to be taken by surprise, and you don't want to. So 2 questions you might want to think about. What are your strengths? What are your opportunities? And it's about how you sell that. You know what? I had to work on my time management skills. When I first got to college, I didn't really know how to organize my time. I have a full-time job. I'm the president of, my dance club, and I'm a full-time student. And when I got to college, I was terrible at time management. But let me talk to you about the things that I've done to improve my time management skills. So now I make a list of things, and I order it in, I put it in order of priority. So things that are due tomorrow are probably going to be at the top of my priority list. It says a lot about someone when you can identify that you have an area of opportunity and that you're actively working on it. So, hint there. And so, and in addition to that, I think that it's just really important for you to just make sure that you're able to sell yourself in the interview. And I'm going to talk a little bit about selling in just a second. But you need to know what problem you're solving for the employer that's seeking to hire you. And you're probably asking yourself, well, how do I do that? I don't know what they want. I don't know what they're looking for. A lot of the times, this is the information that you're going to actually find out at the interview. So you can ask some questions like, can you tell me what were some of the challenges of the person that was previously in this role? What would you like to see more out of the person that you hire in this role? What would you like to see less of? How does success look in this role, and how is it measured? You will only know if you ask. And so when you're going to an interview, they say it's a good idea to come with maybe 2 or 3 questions. That might be one of the questions that you kind of want to think about a little bit, because you want to find out this information. Because once you know what exactly it is that the employer is looking for, then it's your job to go in there and sell them on why you're the best person for the position. So kind of knowing a little bit about what the company is looking for. And again, you probably won't find that out until you're asking during the interview, but you need to be able to quickly talk about how your skill set is going to transfer and what your strengths are and why you will be great at this particular position. The interview is nowhere to be humble. Now, I say that with a little hesitation because I think that it's important that you understand that there's a difference between being humble and being arrogant. Know the difference because we don't like arrogant. And I'll give you an example. I had an interview with a candidate just yesterday. She was awesome. I loved her. There was no doubt that I was going to move her forward. At the end of the interview, we started to talk a little bit more, and she engaged me and told me that she's currently interviewing with 16 other companies and that this is the highest offer she's gotten, and this is the career trajectory for the position. And it came off really arrogant, and as the recruiter, I felt like I was a little bit, on the defense because here I am trying to sell her on the company, and she was immediately telling me what all the other companies are offering her. So if you're me, I don't like anyone to hang up the phone with me unless they really understand and they find out later that I didn't move them forward to the next stage in the interview. I want them to know a little bit about why that might have happened, but I still liked her enough to move her forward, so I did. But I also cautioned her that, in any setting, if you do that in front of the hiring manager, it might come off a little bit arrogant. She said, "Thank you for the advice." We were fine. We hung up the phone. I sent her her information immediately to my hiring manager, and I'm thinking, she got it. She understood what I meant. I get an email maybe about 10 or 15 minutes later from my hiring manager, and he explains to me that he called her to set up an interview, and she told him, "You email me a few dates. I have 16 interviews set up this week." And I was baffled because it came so quickly. I was like, well.
I wasn't in one of your.
Yeah, that's exactly my thoughts. She didn't listen to anything that I had told her. And now, what do you think his perception is? And he hasn't even interviewed her. His perception is that she's arrogant, and he may or may not hire her. He's still going to interview her because it's the right thing to do. But the perception that he already has walking into the interview is not quite positive. So you kind of have to be mindful of that. And that's why I talk about is the difference between selling yourself. You need to sell yourself because you want to get the job, but make sure that it doesn't come off with arrogance. Any questions so far? All right. So I have a little bit of a do's list for the things that you should do when you're preparing for an interview. Practice, practice, practice. Practice makes perfect. I'm a little weird, but I find that this helps. If you are someone that gets really nervous before an interview, I suggest that you look in your mirror, maybe write down a few interview questions that you might potentially be asked. And I will literally stand in front of my mirror and I would ask myself a question and then respond to that question because I want to see how I look. I want to see if I look like someone with confidence or if I sound a little nervous. And I'll keep doing it and doing it until I feel like it's perfected. So that's one of the things I do. Arrive early. If you get there on time, you're really late. And the last thing you want is to walk into an interview and you got your papers mixed up, you're out of breath. It's not a good start to the interview. Bring many copies of your resume. You might do such an excellent job during the interview that someone that you did not originally think was going to be a part of the interview might get thrown in there. That person might be the CEO of the company. You know what? We just interviewed this really great candidate. I think you should meet with her today. She's on the market, and I know that any other company will grab her up very quickly. So why don't we have her sit with you? And then you just got a curveball thrown at you. But you can be prepared by making sure that you have a few extra copies of your resume. Check for fresh breath. I don't think I need to explain this one. You don't want to really be embarrassed, and neither does the person who's interviewing you. So be very careful of that. You might be in very close quarters, depending on the size of the room. So be mindful of that. You want to make good eye contact. Eye contact for me tells me that you are confident. And even if you're not, just keep looking them in the eye because it makes them feel that you're really confident about what you're saying. And if you smile, I might think you have a really great personality and might fit in here. Use a firm handshake. Now, this happens a lot at career fairs, and it could be because students, they shake a lot of hands, right? But when someone gives me their fingertips, I really, really hate it. You ever got the fingertip, like, give a nice firm handshake. A recruiter's just very appreciative of that. And it's the little things. And be positive. I can't tell you how many people I've interviewed them and I'll say, well, why are you leaving your current company? Oh, I hate this company. The management, they're no good. They don't care about the employees. And you might actually feel that way. And I'm not saying go in there and lie. But what I am saying is take the positives out of your experience. It was a great learning experience. I've learned a lot from this company. It's a great company to work for. But I think that it's time for me to move on. I'm looking for better career opportunities. But the last thing you want to do is go in there and talk negatively about your company, because guess what? As the recruiter, I think you're just going to do the same if you decided to move on from us. So just be very mindful of that. Don't arrive late. Don't talk too much. How do you know if you're talking too much? If someone starts looking at their watch. So that's a big part of the communication, and I'll save that for the latter end of the presentation, but just be mindful of that. Don't chew gum, use inappropriate language. Even if you're telling a story where someone cursed, you can just say the person used inappropriate language. Don't actually repeat what they said. Don't bring your cell phone, and if you do, turn it off. Don't look at your watch, and don't assume that anyone is unimportant. Down to the secretary. So when you come in, you best to believe that secretary is reporting at what time you got to the interview, whether you were disheveled when you got there, if you looked like you were on your phone. They're going back to the hiring manager and they're going to communicate that information back to them. So just be very, very mindful that everyone is important. So congratulations. When can you start? That's great news. You finally got a job and it's showtime. But this is your opportunity to let the employer know that they made the right decision. And this is where you start to build your brand. So personal branding is an ongoing process of developing and maintaining a reputation and impression. It's very much your attitude, your attire, how you appear when you come to work. It's about your communication. It is about your ability to network, your flexibility, your work ethic, your organization, teamwork and leadership, and your business sense. Your brand is all of those things. So don't forget that. And I know that some of you are familiar with some of these household brands, and we get a really great feeling. When you think of Walt Disney, what do you think of? What's that?
It's the most magical place on earth.
Right? You're happy, fun. Those are brands, right? And I think that it's important to remember that when you start to work for a company, you become a part of a bigger brand. And if you want to make sure that the company is the right company for you, in your research, you need to find out if their brand is consistent with the brand that you'd like to hold for yourself. So what are 5 things that you would like for people to say about you if you weren't in the room? I'll ask you. What's your name?
Allison.
Allison. If you weren't in the room and you wanted someone to talk about you, what are 5 things you think you would want them to say about you?
Passionate.
Okay.
Determined. Communicative. Efficient. And go-getter.
That was a great list. And that's what you have to start to think about. When you're working for a company, the minute from day one, when you start working there, you are starting to build a brand for yourself. And when you're not in the room, you want people to say those 5 things about you. And I think that oftentimes people kind of forget that the brand starts the minute you start. So how many of you are familiar with a SWOT analysis? Oh, wow, I thought I was going to be introducing it today. So I won't go into it too much further, but a SWOT means strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And pretty much at Enterprise, we encourage our employees to sit down and do a SWOT analysis of themselves. And we ask them to have their direct manager or maybe a mentor of some sort to do a SWOT analysis. And what it does is it allows you to think about what your strengths, your opportunities, some things you need to work on, but it allows them to do the same. And then you come together and you compare and contrast your notes and see if what they are saying is consistent with what you are saying about yourself. So if you haven't done a SWOT analysis, you should. When is the appropriate time to maybe do one of those? If you have a mentor, maybe during a mentor meeting, asking for advice from your mentor, or maybe even during your performance review, it will really show your manager that you actually really care what they think, and that what they think is really consistent with what you think. So this is just one example of a SWOT analysis, and if you go online, you can Google it and you'll probably see 1,000 different SWOT analysis pull up, but this is just an example of how one might look. So jumping to networking. So networking is essentially building your community, and it is key when you are trying to brand yourself. Sometimes it's your network that's in the room when you are not. And if your network consists of someone that's in high-level management, sometimes they may be in a meeting that you are not necessarily required to be at. And even though you're not a part of that meeting could be very much about your professional progression. So you want people that when you're not around, that they're able to talk and say really great things about you. I know that I was a branch manager, and I really had an interest in recruiting. I love finding talented people to come and work for us. And as a branch manager, I was only involved a little bit in the interview process. But I started to reach out to our recruiter at the time, and I started to express interest in the position. And when she went on maternity leave, I started doing career fairs in her absence. Well, guess what? When the opportunity opened up, who do you think she came directly to? She came to me, and it was because not only I expressed the interest, but I did a good job when she was out on maternity leave, and we had talked about it, and I built a relationship with her. And I think it's important that when you have the opportunity to network, even if you're at a company event, I know sometimes we want to hang out with our friends because that's who we know, but you should be working the room. You should have your business cards ready. You should be introducing yourself to everyone in that room, because you never know who might influence your ability to get promoted. So you want to build friends and build that network, and the bigger the network is, the greater the opportunity is for you. So if you have it, and if you're not networking, I would strongly suggest that you do. Communication. Communication is also equally important when you are building your brand. It's important to be able to professionally articulate your ideas and get other people on board. And sometimes it's not what you say, it's how you say it. So your communication can be both verbal or written. When you're writing an email, you should read it back to yourself. Make sure that the tone of the email, no matter what, is positive. And sometimes, like, even if someone did something to make me really angry, I'll say, I know I'm angry, so I want you to read this email and tell me how it's perceived on the other end. Just because you don't want to burn any bridges, no matter how upset you are. It's also important to be able to adjust your communication to effectively communicate with those who might have a different communication style. How do you know this? And especially in the interview setting. If you start an interview and someone asks you to tell you about yourself, and you're going on and on and on about how great you are, and then they're like, okay, moving on to the next question. Well, there's a chance that that person might be more of a linear communicator. They might want more succinct responses from you. And so you have to quickly be able to adjust your communication in order to actively engage that person. Maybe that person is a circular communicator and you're their linear communicator. And maybe you're not giving them all those great colorful details that they're looking for. So you'll find that they'll continuously ask you more questions and they're digging in and they're digging in. Well, it's because you're not giving them enough information. So you have to be able to quickly identify the communication style of the person that you are communicating with to make sure that you can actively engage them in a conversation. So all of those things are really a part of what comes to building your bigger brand. The last thing I'm going to talk about from the branding perspective is your leadership. At any company, you are expected to get results. And oftentimes it's your leadership. Your leadership is it's being a part of a bigger team. So how you are able to rally the team to successfully achieve goals is a big part of how people kind of view you. Is this person goal-oriented? Are they determined? All those great things that you were saying you want people to say about you. Well, a lot of that will come in your leadership. So make sure that you are able to take into consideration your leadership, your communication, your networking abilities. When you get the job, that's half the battle. It's keeping the job and making people want to promote you is the other half of the battle. And a lot of the times it's building a really positive brand that's really going to be consistent with what the company wants, that's going to help you get to where you need to be. So to end this portion of my presentation, this is our founding values. This is the thing that we live by at Enterprise. And the first founding value we have is our brand is the most valuable thing we own. Whether I work for Enterprise or whether I work for another company, it's something that you should always keep in mind. You always want to make sure that your brand is positive. I know a lot of you have social media. I don't do this particularly, but I'm sure that there are other companies that go in and they look at your social media accounts. Just be mindful of the things that you're saying, because at the end of the day, it can tarnish your brand before you even get an opportunity at the table. So always just be mindful of that. And I'm just going to take a few more minutes of your time. I wanted to switch gears a little bit because while some of you might be interested in going to work for a company, others might be interested in just starting their own business and being an entrepreneur. And so I wanted to talk to you a little bit about managing the profit loss. As a management trainee, I learned that at Enterprise. I learned how to run a business. And it was one of the things that I really, really loved about working for the company. And especially being a recruiter, I can now talk about it. But you want to be able to understand what profit and loss is and how ultimately it will affect your business. So can I have a volunteer to read this for me?
The profit and loss P&L statement is a financial statement that summarizes the revenues, costs, and expenses incurred during a specified period. These records provide information about a company's ability or inability to generate profit by increasing revenue, reducing costs, or both.
Thank you. So a basic understanding of profit and loss is your total income or your revenues minus your expenses will ultimately give you your profit. Has anyone ever seen a financial statement or a P&L statement? It will kind of look just like this. Now, this is the most basic form, but I didn't know what level everyone was at in understanding this concept. But I wanted to keep it as basic as possible because the goal is to go and start a company and make money. You have to make money because guess what? You have expenses. And then after you minus your expenses, that will be what you take home. One other important thing that people should know about is the break even. How many of you are aware what a break even is? Can you tell me? Like just from your knowledge of a break even.
You're breaking your even, you're not losing money. So you haven't gained any money, but you haven't lost any money. So you're like making enough to operate.
Exactly. So the point is that no matter what, you always want to break even. You don't want to lose money. And most oftentimes to calculate your break even, if you just pretty much add up all your expenses and whatever that total dollar amount is, that is your break even. That is the money that you need to make before you are able to make any sort of profit at all. The other way that you can calculate your break even is if you take all of your total income or revenue and you subtract your operating profit, it will give you your break even. Sounds basic enough, understanding, comprehensive. Okay. Your break even can also change monthly. So that's something that you also should consider. It shouldn't change too much month to month unless you completely hire, 50 more people or something outrageous that changes the break even. But most often your break even from month to month will always stay about the same. So what affects our revenue at Enterprise? For us, it's our rates. We have to be competitively priced. It's our optional protection packages that we offer. It's our ancillary products such as our GPS, our prepaid fuel, our easy passes. Those are things that generate revenue for our company. So for us, it is our goal, like our salespeople, they have to make sure that we are competitively priced because we want to take over the market share. And the way we get more cars on the road, the more cars we have on the road, the less my competitor has on the road. So you also want to make sure that you are competitively priced no matter what. When starting a business, there are operating costs to consider. There are one-time costs, ongoing costs, essential costs, optional costs, fixed costs, variable costs. Oops, I got excited. So all of these things you should consider. And the reason why I say this is that you need to determine, is this the company I want to start off with? And you want to consider this because some companies or startup companies will incur greater costs than others. Maybe you want to start a company that has a smaller overhead, where you don't have too many employees. You want to start off small and then you want to grow. But those are things that you need to consider when you were thinking about starting your own business. An example of an ongoing cost might be your overhead. This is where you want to kind of keep that low. But your overhead and your personnel, so that's your rent or your mortgage, your wages, your cost of your merchandise, and your utilities. That's oftentimes your biggest expense, but for those companies that are just in the starting stages, they might want to keep their overhead low because that will help them to increase their profits. Make sense? So I know that, for some of us, we want to go out and we want to work in the corporate world, but for some of us, we want to go out and be an entrepreneur, and that's really great. I think that no matter what, you should have these characteristics. You should be passionate, you should be persistent, you should be flexible, you should be a visionary, you should be competitive, and you should not be afraid to take risks. No matter which way you go, you should always keep those things in the back of your mind. And that is the end. So, thank you very much for your time today. I want to take a few minutes to answer any questions that you have. I know I covered a lot of information in that presentation, but hopefully you'll find it helpful to you, especially for most of you who are graduating soon and looking for a job. I think these things are things that you need to start thinking about sooner than later. So any questions for me?
Can we just interject for a second?
Yes.
Can you talk about the opportunities right now?
Sure.
For students who are interested, what's posted and what your process is for full-time since these are seniors?
Okay, awesome. By show of hands, how many of you are on your school's handshake? Okay, that's great. If I haven't contacted you, I probably will be because I go there very often to pull resumes. And I was doing that yesterday, in fact. What I will tell you about Handshake is that for some of you, if you don't have your resume posted, the recruiter isn't able to get your information, like your email or your phone number. We can only message you through Handshake. So if you don't have your resume uploaded, because I was finding that happening a lot yesterday when I was looking up resumes, you want to post your resume because I tell you there are recruiters on Handshake pulling your resumes, and that's one of the things that I love to do. But also on Handshake, I have some jobs posted. I have our entry-level management trainee, which was the position that I started in, and that's usually requires that you have your bachelor's degree. So for those seniors that are graduating, we are actually interviewing now. So if someone's interested and you want to connect with me afterwards, I'll be more than happy to set you up with an interview. Anyone that applies to Enterprise for our management training program is guaranteed at least a phone interview. So you have me here. If you have any questions about the opportunity, you can definitely reach out. The management training program essentially teaches you all aspects of the business. You're being taught everything about sales, everything about marketing, everything about finance, how to manage a business from the back end. You are learning how to provide really great customer service and how to run a team essentially and get yourself promoted. And that's the management training program in a nutshell. Now, for those that are juniors in the room, we also have internship programs. And typically, our internship program runs during the summer. It is a paid internship. Our interns in the Westchester area, I think the starting pay is $14.50. And for the outer boroughs, it's $15.50 to start off during the summer internship. It's 40 to 45 hours. You're working right close with our management trainees, kind of learning how to run a business. A lot of what you'll learn during the internship will be in the classroom, but also on the job training. So you're not getting coffee for anyone or filing papers during your internship program. So you are learning during the internship program. For the management trainee program, the starting pay is $51,357. We say 5 years out, you have the opportunity to get to an area manager position, making 6 figures, company car, company phone. So there's a lot of great things that come with that as you obviously move up the ladder. But those are the 2 main positions. Now, if there's anyone in this room that's not a junior, not a senior, and just maybe looking for like a customer service opportunity, I have those 2. They're not necessarily posted on Handshake, but if you reach out to me outside of that, I can definitely make sure that we get you the appropriate information for the job that might be the best fit right now. And even if you start off in a customer service position, when you become a junior, you can go into our internship program. And the hope is that after the internship program, if you do a really great job, we're going to probably offer you a job. So you already have one lined up by the end of the summer. So when you're going into your senior year, you will already have a job offer on the table. So that's really the goal of the internship program. Any other questions?